Hello everybody, I'm Zeek from Food is Fuck, and this is vlog 4. So in the last vlog, I talked to you guys about my 7 kitchen food essentials. And in this vlog, I will be talking to you about my kitchen tools essentials. So stick around. I'm going to try to keep this down to a bare minimum, so I'm going to try my best to tell you what are the absolute bare necessities, tool-wise, that you need to have in your kitchen. Like last time, I'm going to break this down into categories again, or categories. I'm not going to do that again, I'm just going to say one thing this time. So there's going to be 4 categories this time. Vlog number 4, 4 categories. Vlog number 4, 4 categories. Vlog number 4, 4 categories. And hopefully I won't forget anything. Category number 1. Number 1. Knives. Knives. Probably the most important tool in anyone's kitchen is a good knife. Now, I say good knife, but I don't really actually mean like you have to go out of your way and get expensive ones. By a good knife, I just mean a knife that you take good care of and you keep it sharp. There are a ton of knives out there in the world. So which one should you have and how many? To be honest with you, if you can only have one kind of knife, I would suggest you go for a chef's knife. Now, a chef's knife, as fancy as this sounds, just very simply means the knife that looks like this, right? So, you know, this is a general shape of a chef's knife. So it's a little bit on the big side. It's not too big. I mean, there are knives that can be much bigger than this. But it's definitely also not a small knife. Now, if you can only have one knife, I really recommend you get a chef's knife, and the reason for that is this is the knife that is the all-purpose job knife. This is the one that you can do almost everything with. I rarely use any other kind of knife besides the chef knife. You can do a lot of the smaller jobs with a chef knife, but you can't do a lot of the bigger jobs with a smaller knife. So the chef knife is very important, probably the most important knife that you will ever need. Now, if you do want to have a little bit of variety in your knife drawer, so I would also suggest you get some kind of serrated knife. And again, if you can only have one kind of serrated knife, I personally prefer to get a serrated knife that has very small serrations. Serrated knives are really good when you are trying to cut into bread, some type of cheeses. I honestly find cut much better with a serrated knife. And yeah, I mean it's a good other knife to have around. And that's it. If you can still add some more, you might get a small paring knife. And honestly, you do not really need to go beyond those 3 knives in your drawer. You can literally do everything with those 3 knives. Now, the most important thing about your knives is to keep them sharp. So a sharp knife is probably the best tip that anybody can give you about taking good care of your knives. And just to clear something up here, So something that you definitely should have if you're gonna have even just one knife is a knife honer. And this is a honer. It's not a sharpener because it doesn't actually sharpen your knife. Now, what's the difference between honing and sharpening your knife? So when you see people doing this, the most common thing that people would say is, I'm just going to sharpen my knife here, and they do a few of these, right? Well, technically they're not actually sharpening the knife. The main difference between sharpening and honing is when you sharpen a knife, you actually have to grind or take off little bits of the metal in the knife to create a new edge. So usually, the more you use your knife, what happens to that edge on the knife, even though it looks fine to your naked eye, but what happens is the edge sort of bends. So what the honer does is, when you run the knife on the honer, those bent edges, you're just putting them back into a straight edge again, right? So that's really it. I mean, you're just bringing back your knife to the best possible condition that it can be at the moment. Sharpening, however, is a very different thing. I promise you, if you hone your knives on a regular, consistent basis, you are not going to have any problems with your knife. Now, another good tip about taking care of your knives is don't throw them in the dishwasher. It's not really very good for the knife or the edge. So you only have one knife, two knives, you're probably not going to be using more than one knife while you're cooking any kind of dish anyway, so just spend 2 minutes washing it with your hand. Category number 2, pots and pans. So pots and pans are pretty straightforward. All you really need are 4 different types, and you should be good to cook whatever you want. So for a pan, my recommendation would be to get a medium-sized pan. If you can only have one, then make sure that it's the medium size, right? Because then, well, you're not going to limit yourself to only producing small quantities of food, especially when you have to feed more than one person. So a medium-sized pan should do a very good job for you in most cases. The other really important thing about this pan is it's oven safe. So as you can see, it's a full metal pan. That means I can put it in the oven as well as on top of the stove. So definitely, if you can only have one kind of pan, get a medium pan and make sure that it can go into the oven. If you're trying to keep it down to a minimum, you don't want to spend too much money. I know pots and pans can be expensive these days. Make sure you just have one large pot and one whatever size pot this is. Small, medium, somewhere in between this one. Last thing in the pots and pans category is make sure you have some kind of pan or Pyrex bowl or anything similar to this that you can put in the oven, because sometimes you are going to need to make casseroles and sometimes you're going to need to make things that go in the oven. And I know I said you can do that with the pan, but there are sometimes things that you need to do in a pan like that, not in a pan like this. Of course, you can go more than that. I personally have a lot more pots and pans than what I've talked about here today, but these are the absolute bare minimum essentials. These are my 4 choices for pots and pans. Next category. Category number 3, utensils. Utensils. Utensils are very important, but a lot of people that I see tend to buy way more stuff than they actually need and a lot of stuff that they never use. So to keep it short, I'm gonna try to give you just a few here, but I promise they are useful and they're important. So utensil number 1 is a wooden spoon. So make sure you have a wooden spoon because it is very important. Utensil number 2, have some kind of spatula. So I'm just gonna show you 2 different spatulas here, but just having one is fine, right? So this is the normal, I guess, typical kind of spatula that you can find these days. It's pretty soft, and this is awesome for cooking things on high heat, for dividing things sometimes, for scraping things out of bowls, stuff like that. This kind of spatula I find is really, really good, even for eggs. This is basically the same thing. I know it looks like a spoon, but it, as you can see, it's the same thing, right? So I consider this just honestly just a spatula. And to be honest with you guys, I actually really like this one. I find that it bends better and gets into sort of more places easier than this one. So have a spatula in your kitchen. Third thing in my utensils list is make sure you have some kind of like deep serving kind of spoon. If you can only have one, then I would definitely go for this kind, not the slotted spoon, because, well, you can do the functions of a slotted spoon with this spoon, but you can't do the opposite. You know what I mean? Like, I can still pick up an egg out of boiling water with this, sort of drain the water on the side, take the egg out, or whatever it is that I'm trying to take out, but I can't sort of scoop up a big spoonful of soup with a slotted spoon. So if it's only one, make sure it's this kind. If you can have more than one, then get a slotted spoon next to this one. Yeah. Fourth thing in the utensils list is make sure you have some kind of grater. Now, this might seem like I'm trying to be a bit fancy here, but I'm really not. Graters are great. They're awesome. Graters are great. No pun intended. You can do a lot of things with graters, right? So I use this to mince and grate a lot of things like garlic, onions, cheese, ginger, just nutmeg, so many things that you can do with a grater. Cinnamon. So graters are something that I personally use a lot, like a lot. Number 5 on the utensils list is make sure that you have some kind of strainer or sieve or whatever you want to call this thing. If you can only have one, then make sure that you get a bigger size, because you can still drain smaller things into this, even if you're putting it into some kind of small container or whatever. But you're not going to be able to drain like a big pot of noodles or pasta or vegetables or anything like that in a small strainer. So if you can only have one, make sure that it's the bigger, sort of on the biggish side. If you can get different sizes, that's great, but strainers are important. Number 6 in the... Ooh, one more time. Nothing happened. Number 6 on the utensils list is a spider. So this thing is called a spider. This is very nice for straining things out of hot oil. You can take vegetables again out of water, mainly for frying, but it's good to have around because you don't want to mess up your strainer taking things out of the fryer, right, or out of a frying pan. So a spider I find is generally useful to have around in the kitchen, and I like it, so I have one. Last thing on my utensils list is make sure you have a whisk. A lot of things that a whisk can do, you can usually do with a fork or even a pair of chopsticks. You can probably make a souffle if you spend, I don't know, half a day beating it with your fork, but a whisk just makes things much easier and faster. They're also great for sauces, beating up eggs, if you're going to be making anything with dough, light dough, you know, like, I should say batter, for cakes or things like that. So a whisk is, in my opinion, something useful to have around also in the kitchen. Not totally necessary, but useful. I believe that is it for the utensils. Category number 4, miscellaneous. There's not a lot in this category. There's actually only 3 items here. First off, we have aluminum foil or aluminium foil, whatever you want to call it. Aluminum foil is a very good thing to have around. Next is plastic wrap or cling film or whatever else it's called anywhere else in the world. But this stuff is super useful to have around, man. Useful for wrapping, packing, and just doing a ton of stuff with this stuff. So just have plastic wrap in your house. Last thing on the miscellaneous list, yes, there's only 3 items here, is Ziploc bags. So Ziploc bags are awesome. They are amazing. I would recommend that you do have a few different sizes of these. So this, in my opinion, is my favorite size because it's not too big, but at the same time, this is not small. I also usually have a bigger size, but if you can only buy one, then this is a good size, right? So yeah, I would say that this is the medium size, I guess. I'm sure they have measurements, but I didn't bother looking at what they were, but it's this size. And that's it for miscellaneous. We're done. The unspoken category. So the unspoken category simply means this is something that I just don't have to mention. You definitely should have what I've had in front of me this whole video, which is a good chopping block, right? So you should have a chopping board or chopping block or whatever it is I don't care if it's even those thin plastic ones, although nothing beats a nice, good, solid wood chopping board. So yeah, so definitely have a good chopping board. And that's it, we're done. So those have been my suggestions for what I think are the essential kitchen tools that I think anyone should have in their kitchen. These are the things that if I have, I would feel comfortable cooking anything without having to complain too much about anything really. I hope I haven't rambled on too much. Thank you guys for watching so much. And please, I will be very interested actually if you would share with us what your kitchen tool essentials are. What are the things that you absolutely must have in your kitchen for you to be comfortable cooking in there? Please share. Thank you so much for watching our episode again. Please don't forget to subscribe if you like what we do, like our videos, do the share, do the commenting. We cannot tell you how much we appreciate your time. We love you for all the support that you guys have been showing us. I've been Zeek from Food as Fuck again, and we'll see you guys next time. Shapow! But food processors are cool. Processors, food processors. Crouching tiger, sleepy style. That's not busy. Easy. Look. Your father.